Hello and welcome to this introduction to JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. JSON is a lightweight data exchange format. It is used to exchange format. It is language independent. What that means is that you can use JSON regardless of the programming language. JSON uses the syntax for JavaScript, but the actual format in which it exchanges information is text. It behaves in a similar way to XML, but it is a lot easier than XML in that the code you write is a lot shorter than XML. JSON also has similarities to XML in that it is self-describing. Self-describing means that it is easy for humans to read a JSON code. JSON, unlike XML, does not use an end tag. JSON is shorter to write. It is also quicker to read. JSON uses arrays. Arrays is a JavaScript way of storing multiple values as a single variable. So with arrays, you can store multiple values as a single variable. JSON can be parsed by JavaScript functions. So this is another difference from XML. With XML, you have to use an XML parser to interpret the XML. But with JSON, you can use JavaScript functions to do the interpretation of the JSON. Just to summarize, JSON is a lightweight data exchange format, and it is language independent. That means it can be used by any programming language, but it uses the JavaScript syntax, but the format is plain text. JSON is self-describing like XML. JSON does not use an end tag. With XML, you have to use an end tag. With JSON, you don't. JSON is shorter to write compared to XML. JSON is also quicker to read. JSON also uses arrays. An array is JavaScript's way of storing multiple variables as one value. So it stores several values as one variable. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we'll be looking at the JSON syntax. The JSON syntax is a subset of the JavaScript syntax, so it is derived from the JavaScript syntax. JSON also has a set of rules that must be followed in the syntax. So these are the JSON syntax rules. The data in JSON must have a name paired value. That is, the name object must have a name, and then it must also have a value. So they must be in pairs. The data is separated by commas. So where you have several pairs, you separate them with a comma. The objects are enclosed in curly braces. So whereby you have objects defined in your JSON syntax, you must enclose them in curly braces. Arrays, whereby you use arrays to house your data, they are enclosed in square brackets. So the arrays are housed or enclosed in square bracket. So anywhere you see square brackets in a JSON syntax, know that you are looking at an array. Also, anywhere you find curly braces, you are looking at enclosed objects. So these are the rules that should be followed in creating a JSON syntax. I have got the Notepad++ text editor. I'm just going to show an example of the name per value in JSON. So the JSON syntax, the data is written as a name/value pair. So a name value pair must consist of a field name, which must be in double quotes, followed by a colon, then followed by the value. For example, so the first name, we're using camel case here. JavaScript tends to use camel case. Camel case is when the first letter is lowercase and then the first letter of a name is uppercase. So this is camel case. So first name, separate that with a colon, and then I'll say Alex. So the value must be separated or enclosed in quotes. So the quotes here, and then also the value must have a quote. So this is how you will illustrate a name value pair in JSON. So the first name here is the field, is a field name, followed by a colon, and then the value is this here called Alex. So I've given it a value. First name is a field, followed by a colon, and then the value. With JSON names, you require double quotes, whereas JavaScript doesn't, even though the JSON syntax is derived from JavaScript. When writing your JSON syntax, the field names, you have to enclose it in double quotes. JavaScript, you don't, but JSON, you must enclose in double quotes. So this is an illustration of a name value pair. So the name here must have a value. So every JSON syntax, wherever there is a name, it must have a value. They must come in pairs. And the name values in JSON are surrounded by double quotes. JSON can have other values like number or integer or string. Strings are double quotes. So this here is a string. A text is referred to as a string in JSON. Okay. A Boolean, the values can also be a Boolean. A Boolean means true or false. Also, JSON values can be an array. An array is multiple values represented as one variable. An object also can be a JSON value. Let me illustrate an example of a JSON object. So this is how you specify a JSON object. It must be enclosed in curly braces. So we can use the same code here. I'll just copy that code and bring it here, but I'll just enclose it in curly braces. So you got the left curly braces and then the right. So this is known as a JSON object now because of the curly braces. Okay, and notice where it's got first name. If I wanted to include another value like last name, I can just put a comma there and then type in last name and then enclose that in double quotes. Very important. and then the value, a comma, and then the value. So I just put Jones. Okay, so this is a JSON object. So you got the first name value, first name field, and then the value is Alex. So you separate the values with a comma. So that's a comma. The next field is last name, comma, colon, and then the value. So the colon separates the field name from the value. Remember that colon separates the field name from the value, and the names in the JSON code must be enclosed inside quotes, double quotes. Next, we're going to create a JSON array. So to do that, say for example, I wanted to create some arrays of individual stuff. So I'll just say stuff. That would be the field. I'll separate that with colon, with double quotes, sorry. And then the value will now be an array. So to specify an array, you need square brackets and then you separate them. So what I will not do, I will copy this object inside the array. Okay, this will now be one value. I'll separate that with a comma, and then this will be a second. I'll just tab that to make that tidy, and then I put a third. Okay, so these, if you notice, this is the square brackets and it encloses the array. So the name of the variable is staff, and it contains multiple values which are known as array. So I just need to change the names. First name here, I can just come in and say Peter. Last name, I'll say James. Here I'll come here and say Jane. Last name Doe. When writing an array, you separate the values with a comma. So these are the values. So all the values you separate with a comma apart from the last value. So this is the first value, comma, second value, comma, third value, no comma. So this object staff contains an array with 3 values. So each of these values here are all objects of this variable here. So in this example here, the object staff is an array that contains 3 objects. Each of the object is a record of a person with the first name and the last name. In this lecture, we had a look at the syntax in JSON, how to create them. We looked at the syntax rules. We also created examples using the name value pair, the JSON object. We created a JSON object. We also created a JSON array. Thank you so much for your time. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to help. Take care and bye for now. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we will be creating an object from a JSON string. String is also referred to as text. I have got my text editor opened, Notepad++, So I'm going to use this to create a JSON string, create an object from a JSON string. So to begin, we type in the HTML, which is a doc type. Put a question mark there, and then followed by the word doc type. And then next, we'll type it in between the doc type. We need to specify HTML. I have already written my code in my text editor, Notepad++. So I'll explain the code to you. On line 1 is the doc type, which instructs the web browser that the type of document to display is an HTML document. Line 2 specifies an HTML. That's the opening tag, and this is the closing tag. Line 3 is the body. With HTML, only text between the body tags are displayed by the browser. And then on line 5, we've got the heading. This is the title for the page. On line 7, it's a paragraph tag with an ID of my code. My code is the value for this ID attribute. We will use this later in returning a value from the JSON string. So this is the script. This is the JavaScript. We're using JavaScript to interpret the JSON string. So it will parse it. That means interpret the JSON string. So to write JavaScript, you need to enclose it inside the script tag. So in between the script tag is my JavaScript. On line 10, I've declared a variable in JavaScript, and the variable name is text, and the value is my stuff. So my stuff is a value, and then it's an array. If you notice the square brackets, it's an array. So I've given it an array here, and I've given it a operator, which is a plus. So I'm saying my stuff, and this is quotes plus. These are the various objects inside the array. First name, value. Remember, JSON value pair. First name is a field. The value is James. Last, and we've separated the values with a comma. Last name is Alan. So I'm adding them all, plus the first name here is Jane, value, first name, value Jane, last name Bucket, plus. So the plus is just an operator to add. And then we've got the first name, again Angela, last name Jones. So on line 15, this is an object equals to JSON.parse. This is a JavaScript function that will convert or interpret the JSON string. So to call that, we on line 16, we're using the document.getElementById. It's a JavaScript function. The ID here is my code. So what it's going to do is going to replace this paragraph my code with what's here, with the inner.html. Inner.html means whatever is here will be replaced by what I have specified here. So inner.html equals to the object dot my stuff. My stuff is the variable. Okay, my stuff is the object, which is this one here. And then the number is in an array. The first number is 0. So the value that I have passed here is 1. So it will return this value of Jane Bucket. So the 0 is the first value, then 1, then 2. So it'll be 0, 1, 2. So I said return the value of the first value in the array. So number 1 is this second value, and followed by the question, followed by quotes, and then the object dot my stuff. So this my stuff here, that means it will return first name and last name. So if I execute this, it should say Jane bucket. That's what the plus means. The plus is known as concatenation. It is used to add two strings together. The question marks, the quotes here are used to put a space between the names. Okay, so this is a script. If I run this, it should say Jane bucket. All right, so it's said here Jane bucket. So Jane bucket is the result of the output. Okay, so how to create, that's the title here. Jane bucket is this script here, the output I have exited here. So the object here, my stuff, picks out the second value in the array, which is 1. The numbering in an array starts from 0, 1, and so on. So the first value is always referred to as 0. So it's picked out the second value, which is this one here, picked out the first name, plus, which is add. Add means concatenation. So it's going to add after the first name, it's going to add a space and then add the last name. That's what this output is. So in this lecture, we have created an object from a JSON string.